So last fall, I finally made it to New York City, America's largest, most grand and important city, the home of so much of our history, culture, and iconic infrastructure. Despite growing up less than 10 hours from the city and traveling to all types of places on my other channel, I still had never stepped foot into the Big Apple up to that point. So you can only imagine my excitement at finally being able to experience firsthand all the hustle and bustle, the tall buildings and incredible bridges. But I was going to be doing something that most would not dare to do. I was going to be driving in New York City. I was going to drive around all the boroughs, drive over all the bridges, through all the tunnels, and on all the highways. And on this video, I want to share with you 10 rules that I learned while driving in New York, so that you can know what to expect when driving here for the first time. Or if you're from New York, you may get some entertainment from the perspective of an outsider. Hit the like button, subscribe if you love the content, and let's talk about New York City. Rule number 1, trucks drive on expressways and cars drive on parkways. In New York, they separate their freeways into categories of expressways and parkways. While both are freeways, expressways are your interstate sign routes that are capable of handling heavy trucks, and in most cases, up to the interstate standards that you can find in most other parts of the country. While your parkways are still freeways, but mostly predate the interstate highway system and have features such as tight shoulders, short merge areas, poorly designed exit and entrance ramps, and low clearances to stop buses and trucks from using them. In the South, you might be accustomed to hearing highways referred to by their number, I-85, I-95, I-20, etc. But in New York, most people refer to them by the expressway name and not the highway number. It's the Van Wyck Expressway, not I-695. It's the Long Island Expressway, not I-495. This might be due to many of New York's highways predating the interstate highway system, or it might just be a cultural thing. The no trucks on parkways thing is actually enforced, as I've seen a few trucks get pulled over for driving on parkways in the area. Rule number 2, Manhattan is very well designed from a roadway layout standpoint. It's easy to navigate, even for outsiders. The streets are designed with a very strong grid pattern. They are numbered from lowest to highest, from south to north. Broadway and then Fifth Avenue divide the streets between east and west. Lower Manhattan is the downtown area that contains the seat of government and financial center. It is everything south of 14th Street. Midtown and its many attractions is the area between 14th and 59th Streets, bordering Central Park to the south. Then on each side of Central Park are the Upper East Side and the Upper West Side, sitting between 59th and 110th Streets. North of 110th Street is Uptown, containing the Harlem neighborhood. So in Manhattan, you can easily recognize where you are just by the street name. Pretty nice feature. Rule number 3, there's a citywide no right turn on red. If you're from New York, then you already know this, but if you're new to New York, then it might not be as clear. While driving around the streets of Manhattan, I would occasionally be sitting at a red light at an intersection with no traffic nor pedestrians and consider making the right turn. It felt like by design, these intersections shouldn't permit turning on red, but I looked around and couldn't find any signage stating otherwise. So I just casually made that right turn a few times when possible. However, towards the end of my trip, I finally saw a sign on the Long Island Expressway, of all places, stating that right turning on red was prohibited in the city. New York City needs to do a better job at signing this law for people from outside the area. Rule number 4, charge up your Easy Pass or Easy Pass compatible transponder with plenty of funds before coming to New York. You want to drive into the city from New Jersey? Toll. You want to drive from the Bronx to Queens? Toll. Staten Island to Brooklyn? Toll. Drive north towards the upstate? Toll. You decided to come outside and breathe the New York City air today? Toll. And don't think you can drive further north to escape the Hudson River tolls. They don't stop until you reach Albany. So just make sure your credit card is linked and plenty of funds are available. Though with all these tolls and the condition of the decks of some of the bridges, one has to wonder where those funds are going. Rule number 5. Every square inch of pavement is up for grabs in New York. You know how in other places there's something called following distance between you and the car in front of you? Yeah, don't do that in New York or you'll never move anywhere. You can and will be cut off if there's enough space for another car to fit their nose between you and the next car. If you're trying to make a left turn at a light, don't be surprised if another driver pulls up next to you rather than waiting behind you to make that same turn. I'm usually a calm, patient driver due to how much driving I do and making all those videos. But while in the Long Island City neighborhood of Queens, waiting to turn right at a red light, I actually had a guy pull up to the left of me, then turn right in front of me as the light turned green. That may have been the first time I yelled some things that I had to edit out of the video. If you think you can bring your nice and courteous driving habits to New York from wherever you're from, you will be left behind. If you can't be aggressive on the road in New York, then take the train. Rule number 6, in Manhattan, to turn left is to turn right. Now this one isn't any sign, rule, or law, but when driving around Manhattan and Lower Manhattan, I quickly noticed that many of the streets I wanted to turn left on were often signed as no left turns. So, being that I had already spent a great deal of time in New Jersey and adapted to their New Jersey jug handles, I made my adjustment here. You cannot turn left in New Jersey, and you also cannot turn left in Manhattan in many cases. In order to accomplish the left turn, I instead utilized a series of 3 right turns to reach the desired roadway. You may be thinking this is a lot of extra work to make the left turn, but once you see the Manhattan traffic, you'll realize why left turns are banned at most intersections for the sake of traffic flow. Rule number 7, be prepared to stop. You know how when you see a bus, construction vehicle, or a delivery truck of some sort, and there may be a warning sign on the back letting you know that the vehicle makes frequent stops? Well, in New York City, that applies to every single vehicle on the road. To be honest, this might be the most annoying, shocking, and most stressful part of all when it comes to New York driving. You'll notice that most of the major streets have 3 lanes. However, the far right and the far left lanes are typically not safe if you're just driving through. You're going to see vehicle after vehicle just randomly stop to block the lane at any given time. It might be an SUV, a truck, or any random passenger car. Whether they're delivering DoorDash, driving Uber, or just felt like stopping to admire the scenery, they will do it at any given time without regard for others. Consider yourself lucky if they actually turn on their blinkers to let you know they're about to stop. As an engineer, this probably frustrated me more than anything because I could witness in real time how devastating this was to traffic flow, despite the streets themselves having pretty decent capacity relative to the number of cars on the road. Since it was done so often, I'm assuming there's no rule against it, and if there is, then it certainly isn't enforced. Rule number 8. Avoid the BQE at all costs. For those not familiar with the area, the BQE is the Brooklyn-Queens Expressway, and it's the highway that carries Interstate 278 through Brooklyn and Queens across the city. It is the only expressway that travels through the borough of Brooklyn, which has over 2 million residents, and one of only 2 expressways that can be used to cross New York City, the other being the almost as bad Cross Bronx Expressway. Apparently, someone thought it was a good idea to build a single 6-lane expressway to serve 2 million people. Then, to take things a step further, New York recently dropped a lane in the worst part in the Brooklyn Heights neighborhood, so now that portion is only 4 lanes, leading to what is no doubt the worst congestion on any stretch of freeway in the entire United States. It's not uncommon for it to take almost half an hour just to travel a few miles in the middle of the day. In fact, I was in New York City for Christmas this past December, and no kidding, this section of the highway was already in the orange on Google Maps when I woke up that morning. On Christmas Day. Avoid this roadway at all costs. And if you must use it, then make sure you have plenty of time, because it's going to be a while. It's a good time to check out your favorite podcast because you might be there for an hour or 2. On the bright side, the scenery is nice and the views of the Manhattan skyline are spectacular. Rule number 9. The citywide speed limit is 25 miles per hour unless otherwise posted. Now, the first thing you might be thinking is, that's so slow. Well, in New York City, you won't have much opportunity to disobey this rule anyway. From all the stopping cars to the large amount of pedestrian traffic, it's rare that you could even break this rule if you wanted to. Maybe at night. If you're from a sprawling southern city, then you're probably not used to seeing so many people walking around. So slow down when in New York. But it's not all bad. The local citizens have decorated many of the buildings and structures with their artistic skills, so you'll have plenty of artwork to admire while cruising slowly through the city. For the most part, this rule was obeyed from what I saw. There's also a citywide speed limit of 55 on the highways. However, with this one, I'd say you're lucky if you find a highway where you can actually reach 55 miles per hour. The heavy traffic will keep you a humble, slow-moving traveler. And finally, rule number 10. Parking is a luxury and costly. If you're from elsewhere and used to being able to find free parking occasionally, that's not the case in New York. Whether it's 2 a.m. or 2 p.m., almost all parking spaces are seemingly always occupied. This is especially true in Manhattan, but in some of the other boroughs you might sometimes get lucky. Or sometimes if you thought you were safe, you might walk outside to find a ticket on your windshield. Then for travelers like myself, there is the issue of parking at hotels. If you think you're getting free parking because you booked a hotel, forget about it. Daily parking fees can rack up and add significant cost to a hotel stay, especially in Manhattan. Parking fees are slightly cheaper in the outer boroughs, but some hotels do not offer on-site parking at all. You'll have to venture out to Long Island, New Jersey, or Westchester County before hotels with free parking can be found again. And alright guys, there it is, the 10 rules that I learned while visiting and driving in New York for the first time. Do you agree or disagree with some of these rules? Or do you have any to add? What has been your experience driving in New York City? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. See you on the next trip, coming soon to a town near you.